using best practices, the right tools, framing it the right way, teaching them how to really engage effectively. It fits for everybody. So we certainly didn't want to leave any particular market out as we put Vengreso together.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Colleen McKenna, my friend, my partner, I am so excited that you're joining me on Selling with Social today. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Selling with Social.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm excited to have a little conversation with you, Mario.
Yes, and you've got some interesting changes that have happened most recently for yourself, along with many others. We had recently on the show, Bernie Borges. I think you might know that man.
Heard the name before, yeah.
And we've had Kurt Shaver recently. I think you might know him as well.
Know him as well.
And now we have the amazing Colleen McKenna, the business woman extraordinaire, former amazing LinkedIn coach and trainer, and now actually taking on a new role in a new organization, doing something that is relatively the same but different. Talk to us a little bit about that. What are you doing nowadays, Colleen?
Well, now I am the Chief Administrative Officer and Head of Social Recruiting and Talent Sourcing for Vengreso. So I'm overseeing legal and accounting and HR, as well as really launching the social recruiting practice for Vengreso. So really delighted about this. So much potential here. It's been a long time in the process, lots of conversations, and the time is right.
So I got to ask you this question, this Vengreso thing. We have spent some time with Bernie, the CMO of Vengreso, Kurt Shaver, the CSO of Vengreso. Just rattle off the other folks. You've got yourself as our CAO and head of our talent recruitment, and also chief extraordinaire, LinkedIn coaching and trainer, along with other social tools. Anybody else that's part of this quote unquote Vengreso team?
Well, Vivica Von Rosen, who's the chief visibility officer, and Bryn Tillman, who is the chief learning officer, Phil Gerbashak, who's the chief digital officer. And I think that rounds out the team with you as the CEO, right?
That does. It rounds out the team. Plus, we've got a whole team of folks that are casting support members, are the cast, right? That's going to help make all of these things happen. The question is what are all of these things? Now, I know that you heard the show with Bernie and you've heard the show with Kurt, and I'm so excited to have this conversation because today's conversation really is about Vengreso's focus in a particular segment. Talk to us a little bit about this segment that we are focusing on and that you are helping to lead as well, the practice.
Right. Small business segment. So we've spent the last 6 years through Intero Advisory really working with a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small and mid-sized businesses. And what's exciting about really coming together and creating Vengreso is I think we create a greater landscape for small businesses to really be able to sort of manage this digital transformation that so many of them struggle with because they don't have big marketing departments. They don't have big HR departments and recruiters on their team. So we have noticed over the last 6 years that there's a lot of pieces that some of these companies just can't put together. And I'm excited because our team has really tried, our team of 4 has really tried to bring together all of these different pieces. But now with Vengreso, we can offer a really strong offering so that wherever they need us, we can help them really leverage these social tools, teach them how to use them, see the execution all the way through, and really show them the value and the impact of digital selling and recruiting.
I love it. So Vengreso's model is to ensure Kurt talked about it focusing on the high end, mid market, and enterprise. You're specifically referring to our entrepreneurs and small business owners, if you would, into probably the low end mid market arena. So to me, it doesn't feel like we are missing or walking away from any segment of the marketplace. Is that correct?
Correct. And I always feel as though what we're doing and what we're offering benefits everybody. From building a great profile and digital footprint, through content, through employee advocacy, through recruiting and finding talent. So, it's as important for a small business owner to make the right hire as it is for the people in enterprise, right? So using best practices, the right tools, framing it the right way, teaching them how to really engage effectively, it fits for everybody. So we certainly didn't want to leave any particular market out as we put Vengreso together. So I think it's really important that people know there's a place for them within the Vengreso environment so that they can leverage digital transformation.
Yeah, I like that. I want to come back to that particular commentary because there are many out there that might think that we're the jack of all trades, but master of none. And I want to spend some time talking about how we built the business and how we built the co-founders and how we looked at this so that it can actually address that topic of we're the jack of all trades, but master of none, right? So let's transition for a moment. You built up, Colleen, and this was very impressive. And, when I started looking at the list of folks that I wanted to bring in, I made a map. I wish I probably should have taken a picture of it. I guess I never took a picture of it because it would have been great because I had all these names and diagrams and people and mapped to the certain segments and the focuses. But you had built up a phenomenally healthy small business practice, especially for a team of 4 people. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about seeing your growth and progress was you were a very sales-oriented, focused organization. And I loved the grind. I loved the focus in terms of really trying to deliver on the numbers. And quite frankly, without going into details, you delivered on some phenomenal numbers as a small business organization. So there's a lot of small business folks that are out there that would love to grow and scale. And just talk to me a little bit about, for those that are listening in that have aspire to do something big. And Vengreso out of the gate, as per our press release from a couple weeks ago, Vengreso out of the gate becomes the only full service or full spectrum service provider for digital sales transformation services, right? We also become the largest personal branding company for sales and marketing, and we become the largest social selling training company globally in the marketplace. So a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking, man, how could I grow? How could I scale? How could I get more leverage? I want to go big. And all of a sudden overnight, you, me, and all these other co-founders became the largest almost everything. So talk about how many years you were in business, how hard was it to grow and scale, and the journey that you went through over the last 6 months or so in looking at an opportunity to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense, not only for you, but for the marketplace.
Right. So I started doing this 6 years ago. So I started really training and coaching January of 2011, having come out of a role as a VP of sales in a very traditional industry, the printing world. So I started doing some sales coaching and looking at content because I had also been in publishing, but I really was kind of hooked on how can we use these tools, social tools and platforms, to grow our networks, build our personal brand, and build our business opportunity pipeline. And so very quickly, just heads down, I just started networking with the right people, right? And in Baltimore, I connected with a lot of tech guys in Baltimore who were like, oh my gosh, you're kind of onto this really cool thing here. A couple of those guys referred me, brought me in, I did some speaking. And it kind of grew right from that very small group of people. I call those people centers of influence. So when I talk to entrepreneurs and small business people, one of the first things I say to them, first of all, how does your brand look online? How do you use these platforms to leverage who you already know? Because in order to build your business as a small business, I think you have to go and you have to understand how to leverage your network and get referrals. And we really tried from the very beginning. And for about 1.5 years, it was just me. And then I brought someone else on. and then someone else beyond that. And then we needed people to do outreach. So our team has really grown with the whole sense of, if we can always accomplish the mission of whatever the objectives are of our clients and serve them well and have a high level of excellence, we'll continue to get referrals. And so one of the things I did early on was I interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs to say, how did you start your business? How did you grow your business? And almost unanimously, they all said to me, the hardest part is the sales. I know what I know. I'm a subject matter at X, but growing my business has been the hardest part for me because I don't have a sales background.
Yeah.
Even more reason than to leverage your network, right? Dig in and ask them for introductions and be a good social citizen and make introductions. But I realized that my whole background is in sales. I basically had to re-engineer what I was doing and really dive in and find expertise in these platforms. And that's what I've really been focused on for the last 6 years. I'm naturally curious, so I'm always testing new tools and seeing how they can work, and always trying to make sure that as a consultant, delivering value in every conversation to those clients that we're working with.
That sounds phenomenal. So as you looked at growing and scaling, talk to me about the emotional roller coaster that you may have that you've been on, still may be on, and that, in terms of like, you've taken your small business and now the small business has become a much larger small business, right? And what does that look like? And what are some of the things that you went through as you went on this roller coaster? And from the very first time that I called you and said, or maybe I think I sent you a message. Maybe I sent you a message. Was it a message?
Yeah, a message. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was something like a teasing message of some sort. I've got something amazing. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you went through and what was that process like from the very first call over the many months that we spent working together on putting this company together.
Well, from the very beginning, probably about 6 months in, so the middle of 2011, I realized that there was enormous opportunity for what we were doing. So many of these platforms had reached their tipping point and it was going to explode, especially on the sales side and the recruiting side. I definitely identified that early on. Lots of people over the last 5-6 years have approached me and said, hey, we should partner. Hey, we should do this. But ultimately, there wasn't enough there, right? And so the conversation with you and looking at the group of people, it was the right time and the right group of people with the right mission. And I think that that's important because we can only get so far as individuals. And even with my team, sometimes we're like, oh my goodness, we need more people. We need to disrupt again. And I have a great client who is also in a very mature industry. And he said to me just the other day, you know what it's like? It's all about disruptive innovation.
Yeah.
And I love that, right? Because we constantly have to be growing and expanding, pushing beyond our own comfort zone so that we can continually be keeping our clients ahead of the curve. And that is really, really crucial. If we just sort of say, well, we'll do what we do the way we did it 6 months ago, wow. In some cases, that's completely outdated at this point.
Yeah.
So the collective brain power, experience, expertise that the group at Vengreso brings to every client and prospect is unprecedented. And that is exciting. And because there is so much opportunity, we should be the leaders who are constantly disrupting ourselves so that we can make sure our clients understand the value of that and the results that they can get from doing the same thing.
That's a great point. And I cannot disagree with you. In my history in corporate, those were one of the many things I got in trouble for all the time, is trying to be a disruptor, challenge, change, have people think differently about the way we did business and the process and the methodology, and identifying that there are better ways to do this. And let's focus in on how to get the job done better so that we can net out better results. And that's very difficult in the world of corporate. And so I love what you just said, that we should be the leaders. And we are the leaders, quite frankly, based upon what we're doing here and what we've launched in the last couple of weeks, of how we are disrupting change, but making sure that those are calculated decisions that actually prove out to be of benefit, right? And I think that's a great lesson for those that are in the small business segment listening to this, those that aspire to be their own business owner. is to really be thinking about how can you always be a disruptor in the industry. And well, let me tell you, the results are in, and you and I both know them after launch over just a couple of weeks. Vengreso is a disruptor.
And I think that's a great thing. It's always interesting. When working with small businesses, I always say, you know what, I want to give you a clue about something. The larger the organization, sometimes the harder they are to move, right?
Yeah.
Or the harder some of these platforms are to manage. And it's very hard for a large company to manage all of their employees on a platform such as LinkedIn, right? For these small companies, I'm like, you can really pull it together, and through really smart decision making and having a strategy, you can actually level the playing field, because I can begin to look at you online and see that you are so consistent across the board.
Yeah.
If you do some of these things, right? And I think that that's really important. I think for small business people trying to scale their business or make the most out of the group of people and the employees they have, they've got to really think differently. They've got to adapt to these changes, because we're not going back, friend, right? Or it's all moving forward. And if you don't join the parade, you got to move aside. And, we want to be the people that help these small businesses figure it out and move forward.
Yeah, I was recently speaking at the AAISP event in San Francisco, and it was actually a woman's panel, Lori Richardson, a friend of ours, and she asked me as the only male to be on this panel on women in sales and how some of the challenges that are facing women rising to the top. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this in just a second and why I'm telling the story. But somebody asked the question, they said, how do you balance ambition with the delivery and actually succeeding? And my answer was, you don't balance it. Here's my perspective. Ambition without a plan and precision gets you nowhere. Mm-hmm. So in order to have success, you got to have the ambition, but you got to have the plan with precision. And it's got to be laser focused. And this is one of the areas that I love and I appreciate about having you on the leadership team with Vengreso, because you don't stop short of helping to reel people in when we need to be reeled in to develop that plan and to make sure that we have a precise plan of where we want to go and how we're going to get there. Which leads me to my next discussion point, which I'm very, very proud of. And that is when we went to map this out, of who are the leaders that we wanted to bring to the table and form this amazing, great company for helping the digital sales transformation. I was very, very focused on having 50% of our founders be women. And I'm very proud the fact that we almost made it there. Almost. We don't have it quite. Out of 7 folks, we got 3. So, it's somebody was going to lose. We can't have a half a man and half a woman. But talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about, the reasons for diversity inside of a business and why having women on the leadership at the C level, right, with the same level of power and voice is very important to a small business growth as well as a large business mentality. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. I think it's really incredibly important. I think that diversity on every team creates greater perspective. It brings people's strengths into consideration in a really rich way. I was just at a conference last week called Women Spanning the Globe. And there was a lot of focus on diversity, women on boards, women on leadership teams. And guess what? The most successful companies, and this is now proven with a lot of statistics, the most successful companies have women at the top too, right? There's a high level of increased profitability and longer tenure. So I think it's really, number one, admirable that as you were putting all of us together, you were really focused on that. And I think that women bring a different voice to a table. I have a great client where I can see how they manifest this because they have a lot of women at the table. And so I think it just creates a richer environment for everybody. And also, there are a lot of people that I work with. Those companies are run by women. So I think it all makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, now with all of our entire Vengreso team, there's actually more women than there are men. I don't know if, I was recently looking at the org chart and I thought, hey, wait a minute, we're outnumbered here.
Well, my whole team is women, not necessarily by design, but somebody said to me, hey, you need to hire a man. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to hire the best person for the job. How about that? And it just so happened that we have put together a team of 4 people and all really dynamic, very service-oriented individuals who are really committed to serving clients.
Yeah. And interesting you say that. At the conference, there was a leader in the group that actually said, hey, my policy is really, hire the best person for the job. And I agree with that philosophy. I do agree. You do want to hire the best person for the job. But if it's within your power and it's within your control, and you have the ability to design something from a small level up through a large level, then make sure you bring the diverse perspective. And so, one of the other areas that I was looking at was, can I have diversification from an ethnic background on our leadership team? Well, there's not a whole lot of influencers that are in this space that are teaching digital that have a different ethnic background. And myself and Bernie, we come from a Latin descent, but other than that, there weren't a whole lot, right? So the other piece was, well, look at it from, we could build women into the fold here. And this is interesting because I heard of a stat that talked about at the sales ranks amongst B2B and B2B sales, that out of all the sales people, about 33% of the sales people are women. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, right? Like, how is it so small? Now, that's a whole separate other podcast here, right? Topic. But as you go up the chain at the executive level ranks, it went down to 12% of the senior level executives in B2B sales were women. And to me, that was an important issue to address up front, that we needed to make sure that our leadership, our company, that what we brought to the marketplace was representative of cultural diversity as well as men and women, and that what we could bring to the table was to actually relate to the small business segment, to actually relate to those that are both women-owned or minority-owned business, to relate to those that are of African-American descent or Latino descent or whatever other ethnic background, to scale into the enterprise and have the experience. And so I want to move on into another topic, which is, if you were to think of our leadership team and our founders, can you kind of lay out, do we have this small business expertise? Do we have this enterprise expertise? Do we also have this content marketing or marketing background expertise to create this alignment that you talked about between sales and marketing? Lay that out for folks and tell us your thought process on that.
Well, I think it's really interesting when you look at the group of us, the 7 of us. I think we all have come to build our businesses in a little bit of a different way. And certainly Vivica works with a lot of small businesses and solopreneurs. Phil works with a lot of authors and coaches, solopreneurs. Bryn kind of bridges some of those and does a lot of profile development for some small businesses, but certainly serves and coaches and trains on the enterprise level. You and Kurt, definitely much more enterprise oriented. Bernie, really interesting because he's got content clients. And there's some pretty big clients there, but he also represents some of the smaller businesses in helping them do strategy, content audits, and employee advocacy, even for small businesses. So, and, we definitely, our biggest area is definitely small business, lower mid-market, with a sprinkling of those enterprise clients. So every time I look at one of the founders, I can see how they can cross over into other segments, but have a real specialty in whatever really launched their business in the beginning. So together, I think we can really encourage, support, and deliver services across the entire segment, solopreneurs all the way through enterprise, without foregoing the jack of all trades, because we are really committed to making sure that we've got the right people serving the right clients in the right way. And I think we have enough of us now as we begin to really come together and cross-sell and go in as a team, that putting the right team together will only deliver better results for the client. So I think we cover the whole area really well without sacrificing or being considered a jack of all trades. Because remember, we are only in the digital space.
Yeah.
Right? So as big as that is, we are going to be really careful. And I think with our first set of offerings, including boot camp and profile development, really making sure that we're delivering in a very specific area.
Yeah, great point. Totally agree with you. And that was another area, if you looked at the business planning side of things, was we're not a company that has done social selling training and focused just in the enterprise and now wants to go into the small business segment, right? And then you're looking to how to market to that segment.
Right.
We brought to the table a strategy that includes small business, the low-end mid-market experts who have mastered that particular market, and those that have mastered the enterprise market, and those that have mastered the content marketing strategy development, content distribution, and brought that together under one umbrella so that we could actually take those business segments that we were already masters of and scale it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful story, and I love the way you articulated that. By having that expertise, we have the ability to be able to say, you know what, this offering actually does not work for whatever it might be, for the enterprise, for the small business segment. And we have that voice because we have the experience, years of experience in some cases. So really like that perspective. So let's talk digital. Let's talk digital selling. Let's talk leveraging social for the small business segment.
Mm-hmm.
Is this obviously we believe it's a valid area that people should be focusing in on. Where do you start first? If you're a small business owner, and what does that look like? I don't know, under 100 employees. How about that? We'll say under 100 employees. Where do you start at? What should you be doing? How do we help? Talk a little bit about that.
So we talk a lot about, and I sit down with a lot of CEOs and business owners, and I say, it starts with you. You have got to buy in. You have got to give this attention. You are the face of your organization. And in many cases, some of those CEOs and business owners are also selling, right? Because they can open doors their best sales and business development people can't. So I always say it starts with you. Then let's put a strategy together. What are our objectives here? By the way, we're talking about social selling, but my guess is even for the small business owner, they might need to hire 2, 3, 5 people this year. So once again, same best practices to me, whether we're talking about people, recruiting people, or selling our products and services. So starting with the executive team and making sure we have alignment between the executive team and then sales and marketing, then having strategy so we can start to implement a plan. Then we always start with how do you look online? One of the things I am most excited about at Vengreso, and I saw a preview of it just the other day, were all these content audits, right? So how do you look online with great suggestions? And there's some really cool stuff we're going to be rolling out that's actually software that we can implement so that we can give people an overview. So when we walk into a company, how do you all look, right?
Yeah. Now you said content audit. Did you actually mean LinkedIn profile audits?
Sorry. Yes, I did. LinkedIn profile audits, yes.
Yeah, very exciting.
I love that. I think I was drooling yesterday when I was watching that.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic offering for those that really want to understand a graphical representation of how they look, the way they look, what they look like, and then various different points that showcase the areas of improvement, correct?
Absolutely. And so even on the recruiting side, Mario, think about this. Our recruiter can put in front of a hiring manager or a CEO a overview of how the top 3 candidates look online. How powerful is that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How their networks compare to their competitors. This is really, really powerful information. So
that's a new product. That's a new service. We're going to start selling that to all the different talent recruiters that are out there and as a service offering. I don't know if we're now, I'm just kidding, but
for everybody, right? Because we go in and we say, let's look at how everybody looks.
Yeah.
Suddenly we can really pull this together in a really nice piece.
Yeah.
And with a lot of good suggestions. So then we can start to build really great LinkedIn profiles, make sure that they look good on Twitter, make sure they look good, on Facebook if that's part of the plan, and start to roll out some things like video, some of the other tools that they may not have considered that can really be powerful as they go to market with their sales strategy. So I think that we need to have a plan. We do a lot of debriefing. We spend a lot of time talking to our clients like, okay, how did this outreach work? How did these campaigns work? How are you getting meetings from some of these platforms? How are you using content? Oh, by the way, your marketing department's doing a great job creating and posting content. How about you guys sharing the content? Right? So this employee advocacy piece, which is distributing this content into everyone's network, really, really important. And I see that as a really missed opportunity for most companies.
Yeah.
So it's, we work really closely, and I know Vengreso, we're going to be working really closely with some really key stakeholders in companies, whether it's a small business or an enterprise. We've got to pull everybody together. But the more the CEO, the business owner, the president of a business unit, whomever that might be, is engaged, and the team knows they're engaged and is taking this seriously, the better it's going to be implemented from the team, from my perspective. I see a lot of training where it comes and goes because nobody's encouraging it and reinforcing it on the client side.
Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about this concept of sales and marketing alignment, but oftentimes in small businesses, say, 50 employees and less, they may not have a marketing department where there is a marketing alignment. So talk a little bit about how do we help? What do we do in those environments in terms of helping to create, whether it's content strategy or distribution strategies? Can we help in those areas?
I think we can. And I think in some cases, we might become an extension of their sales or marketing department, frankly, right? So yeah. We've certainly done several engagements where we're really the acting marketing department. We put the plan together and we help execute it. And we bring the right people in to do that, whether it's writing content or it is making sure all the posts are all lined up and ready to go. So we can certainly add that in because we know that these are not always going to be situations where they're full-blown marketing departments.
So that's phenomenal. Content, sales development, coaching, campaigns to drive sales opportunities. Mm-hmm. Companies now want to actually two areas. One, we do all this stuff for them, whether it's small biz, mid-market, enterprise, and they're like, can you guys help me find the guy or gal out there that has the right mindset and the capability to leverage these tools and the skill set? Mm-hmm. Can you help me find these people? Can we help them? Talk a little bit about the talent recruitment or social recruiting aspect of Vengreso.
Right. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we actually have been doing recruiting and talent sourcing for clients. So we are a talent solution partner. We use LinkedIn Recruiter, which is our primary tool, but we certainly use other tools and particular niche job boards as needed, as well as leverage people's networks. But we've been doing recruiting because, once again, that small to mid-sized market came to me, right? I had probably 3 clients in about 6 months who said, hey, we're doing all this stuff on LinkedIn and some other digital tools that we're using. What about recruiting? I'm like, well, sure, of course we can use it for recruiting. So we actually had some of our clients purchase LinkedIn Recruiter, but what we saw, because they didn't have a dedicated person, was they didn't really leverage the tool. And so we decided, well, you know what, it makes sense for us to use LinkedIn Recruiter and some of these other tools. Why don't we manage it for them?
Yeah.
And so the other really important piece is not only proactively going after and finding people to talk to for certain positions, but it's really also important, Mario, to think about your employment branding message. So we talk with companies a lot about how are you using your, let's say, your LinkedIn company page, and how do you look online as a company beyond maybe your website? Hey, what about how you're looking on Glassdoor? That's a big topic, right? And I talk to some CEOs who don't even know what Glassdoor is. So we spend a lot of time talking about building out an employment branding message. Why do people want to work at your company? Because if you're proactively going after talent who are passive, meaning they already have a job, they're vetting you as much as you're vetting them, right? So you better look good. You need to look good online because the first thing they're doing is going to Google and say, who's Mario Martinez and who is Vengreso?
Yeah.
We want to make sure You look good so that when the outreach begins, somebody is interested in talking about an opportunity.
Yeah.
So really, there's so much that is overlooked on this employee branding messaging. Your culture, what kind of culture? Share that online, right? Talk about your culture, because people will begin to understand what kind of a company you are, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier to recruit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talent is fiercer than ever, right?
Yeah.
Finding really good talent is going to become increasingly difficult. So you want to make sure that you have the best opportunity to find the right people for your team.
Yeah. And today's practice is focused in on that small business and the mid-market, but certainly by no stretch of our imagination would we not be able to help in the enterprise segment as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Very often we've had conversations with people in that enterprise space who say, you know what, we've got a whole recruiting team over here. They do an awesome job, but they're trying to fulfill, 150 requisitions. I'm like looking for one salesperson. Can you help me locate some?
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about how to reach out and do some really great messaging so people respond if I send them a message? So very often we have worked with larger organizations because you know what? They need as much help as they can get, right?
Right.
And resources going toward this recruiting, because even at the enterprise level, it's really, really competitive for talent, right?
Yeah.
If you think about where you are in San Francisco, think about how those different companies, I won't mention names, but they're always trying to find the best talent, and therefore they have to sometimes look at their competitors.
Yeah.
So even in large companies, they need some assistance in finding good talent too.
Yeah, fair point. Well, we've talked about a lot of things and really about our approach to the marketplace, our philosophy, some of the service offerings, some of the things we talked about in terms of growing and scaling a company. Talk a little bit about, as I want to close this out, just the journey and the process that you've gone through as a small business owner, now being part of a much larger organization and a much larger focus. Scared, not scared, ready to go, not ready to go. Talk a little bit about that, because those that are listening and are wondering, like, man, are we fully committed? Do we have an organization that's fully committed? Do we have the right mentality, the mindset? Because we teach mindset, obviously, because what we're teaching is all about the change in mindset and behavior of traditional methodologies and leveraging digital as a channel. So talk about that to those that are out there that are listening in, about this mindset you've gone through in terms of going from small to big, and what does that look like for you? And is it still there, and are you still going through a process?
Well, it's interesting, right? You have a baby, it's sort of like your child, right? And you kind of build this business to say, okay, I constantly have to be growing it, and I have to be thinking ahead, and I have to be strategic, but I'm so in the business and in the weeds of the business. And I've had lots of these conversations over the years. What I found in our conversations and the conversations we've had among the team, that everybody was ready to commit, and everybody, I have to say, I think everybody put their egos aside to really say, we're going to build this. We're going to be a sales organization. We're going to eat our own dog food, right? We're going to really
drink our Kool-Aid.
We're going to be disruptive innovators. And that appealed to me. Right? That made sense, because everybody, I can't tell you, and and I don't know when you sleep, but everybody especially over the last 6 weeks, has contributed an enormous amount of time and energy and emotion to this whole process. We actually came together, when we met at your house in California, and we spent 5 days together. It was very emotional, right? It was 7 people getting to know one another, and talk about under constraints, right? We had a big time constraint. And I think that what emerged were lots of questions, but ultimately, and every one of us agreed, and Mario, don't know that I'm going to say this, really saw such a huge commitment from you that we kind of really can't help but to be inspired by that, I have to say. And so in the days that I had lots of questions and we had lots of conversations, all the answers continually resonated back to the core point, which is, are we better doing this together than we are alone? And in the end, my team is really jazzed about this opportunity, and so am I. So I know that we have a lot of opportunity to really help a lot of people take a similar journey, right? And that journey is to get into a place where they can continually grow their business. So I think that we add a lot of personal expertise to our offerings because we have all been individual contributors who have come together to form a bigger company with lots of opportunity. That's how I look at it. So yeah, there's lots of emotion involved.
Here, you darn right there is. You almost made me cry just a second ago. I'm such a crier.
That's okay, so much.
Oh, for those of you listening and you couldn't hear me sniffling and muting, but just the words. I've built strong revenue organizations, sales-based growth cultures, but building my own practice was probably single-handedly the hardest thing I've ever done in 20 years in business. Mm-hmm. The hardest thing. And probably next year, I will say single-handedly merging together 7 companies will be the hardest thing that I've ever done.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, so that's going to be the new thing. And I do sleep, but I do need more. But we are committed. And I love what you said. There's a lot of emotion that goes into this. And, thinking about this, for everyone, including myself, right? When giving up M3 Junior Growth Strategies as a brand and coming together under a new merged organization that we are giving birth to, right? Everybody is contributing to. It's a big thing. And to actually walk away from a brand that you may have built up as a company name, it's a big deal. But I think also what everybody realizes is this, and I think this is the message I want to give back to salespeople and sales leaders and marketing leaders, is that while you may build a great company, at the end of the day, people are buying from you. And it's you that helps make or break the deals and the opportunities. Sure, the company has a contributing part, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But it's you on the front line that is identifying whether or not the service that you are going to get, the delivery, the commitment to helping an organization grow and solve a business problem, whether or not it's going to come from you as an individual. And that's one of the beautiful things that I love about every one of our founders is that they're committed to success. And it may be hard, may be difficult, and there is no easy task, Colleen, as you know, when we start merging companies together, there's no easy task of merging company, culture, people, personalities, and everything else in between. But we're going to do it. And we've done it. And we're making some great progress. We've got some great client wins already that are behind us and many more that are coming forward. And we've got a great set of announcements that are coming forward every single month. We've got new product launches and advisory board members and all kinds of really cool stuff. So, Colleen, I am thankful to have you as part of the leadership team for Vengreso. And you serve a very important role within the organization, helping us to grow and scale and have a sales mentality and culture. I love it. And I'm glad you're here with us. And I also think too that what we have to the marketplace and what we'll bring is phenomenal and will help people drive additional revenue because that's ultimately what we care about. There's no big Vengreso anything unless we've got revenue.
All about revenue.
All about revenue. All about revenue. Colleen, is there anything else that you think we missed today in talking to our audience that should know about digital sales transformation?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of territory, but definitely go to vengreso.com. Check out our website. We're going to have lots of things on there, lots of tools and announcements, blog posts, podcasts, boot camp. Sign up for boot camp because it's going to be a really great offering. And I know right now, Kurt and Bryn are working diligently to build some really great content for boot camp. So that's a great, great piece. But connect with us on LinkedIn and follow us on Twitter or go to follow our LinkedIn company page, YouTube. We're pretty, I think we're pretty much everywhere, aren't we, Mario?
Well, pretty much, yeah. We'll put all those links in that you mentioned. If someone wants to reach out directly to you, can they reach out and connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. And my email is Colleen at Vengreso, 1S, just to be sure, .com, and would love to hear from people. And I'm excited to be a part of Vengreso, and this has been a great journey so far. And I hope you join us on this Vengreso movement that we've hoped to create and have already created. So just follow us, and we look forward to working with you.
Join the movement. That's our motto right now, join the movement. So by the time that this goes live and publishes, people will see the join the movement. And thank you, Colleen, for everything that you're doing for our customers, our clients, our service delivery, and for us as a founding leadership team. Excited to have you on board. One last question before I leave. I always ask, Colleen, your favorite movie of all time and why?
So I guess I'm probably really dating myself here, but it is Out of Africa.
Oh.
Street. And why? She was kind of a pioneer. She was single-minded in her pursuit of just about everything and moved to Africa and built this great life for herself and was a fabulous writer. So I just love the movie.
I loved Out of Africa. That's the first time someone's mentioned that one. So I love that one.
I know, it's not so popular, right? And I don't get to watch it that often because my husband will say, seriously?
Really?
Yeah. But it's my favorite.
I love it. Well, Colleen, thank you so much for joining us on Selling with Social. And we'll make sure everybody who's listening will put all the links into the show notes of this page. And you're listening to Selling with Social. Thanks so much, Colleen.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Mario.
Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges, along with Conversations with Phil with my friend and partner, Phil Gerbishak. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.